Hello, everyone, and welcome back. One question I've been getting a lot from you guys is how to use modulation in your compositions. Some of you have noticed that I've used modulation in the track I've created in this course and want to achieve similar results, while others simply want to learn how to move away from working in only one key throughout the track. And modulation is a huge topic with a lot of different varieties, but in this lecture, I'm going to show you some basic tips and tricks that you can apply in your composition right away to make them more interesting without really drowning in music theory. So, modulation is basically the process of changing from one key/tonal center to another one. When used right, it can transform and add a new dimension of emotion, drive, power, and interest to your composition. And as I said, modulation is basically a change from one key to another. This means that if your composition is in C, or C major for example, a modulation will change the tonal center from C to basically any other key, like D major or G major, and so on. Such a change in tonal center will give you a whole new set of chords and notes to utilize, breathing new life into your composition. Even if you're just using the three main chords, tonic, subdominant, and dominant, in C, which is C, F, and G, modulating to the key of D major, for example, will quote-unquote unlock the chords D and A major as well, in addition to G, which is common for the two keys, while it will also subtly change the emotion of the theme. So modulation is a good way to make your themes a bit more interesting and add some more flavor to your music. While modulation is not the most crucial thing in a 4-minute pop song or a 3-minute trailer cue, it is absolutely essential in larger orchestral works like symphonies and film scores. That said, even in shorter cinematic tracks, using modulation can breathe some life into your track and give it a nice boost. While I could have gone in depth into theory at this point, I feel it's better to give you some more practical ways of using modulation to enhance your music and give you a feel of what the different modulation techniques do. Let's have a look at a few ways you can get started right away playing around with modulation. So, first of all, you have two types of modulation: direct and common key modulations. Let's start with the first one. Direct modulation is, as the name implies, a direct jump from the home key to the new key without any kind of transition. The most common way to modulate directly is probably the truck diver's gear change, as they call it, when you modulate one or two semitones up, giving the theme a little boost. This is very common in pop hit songs and can end up sounding borderline cheesy if one is not careful. That said, it can be an effective tool when used sparingly. This is a type of modulation I've used in the track from my course, for example, where in the climax I modulate, I think, a minor third up. Here I've been taking a little theme that I wrote for the piano, and I've been using directs and common key modulations to show you a few different ways that you can use modulation in transitioning between two keys. Let's just listen to a theme that I have here. Alright, so here I've been just recording this quickly for strings as well, like in the other videos. So a little string theme. Now, what I want to do after this is to modulate this into a new variation of this theme in a different key. So in this example here, I've been using a direct modulation where I modulate from D minor one whole step up to E minor. Let's have a listen to what it sounds like. As you can hear, this is a very abrupt and quick way to jump from one key to another. You can basically see that I've just been copying this and moving it 2 steps up to the new key. That's basically everything I've done. Now, this is a nice way to just add a little boost to your theme, whether it is a climax or in the middle of a melody or during a repetition of a melody, just to make sure it doesn't lose its energy and so on. In the next case, we have another direct modulation. And while I, in the previous example, modulated only one step up, here I've been modulating 5 steps up. A perfect fifth up to A minor from D minor. Apart from that, it's exactly the same thing. I just be repeating the theme, just 1/5 above. Let's listen to the effect of that. So this is a nice little effect when you want a simple way to just add some more energy and modulate over to a new key without using any transitions. Now let's look at another way of using modulation. And keep in mind that you don't have to use these to transition between, say, the bridge and the climax or between two themes. You can also use this technique within a theme or within a melody where the melody actually modulates, or modulation is a crucial part of the melody. So just feel free to experiment with these things, but in general, try to use modulation quite sparingly, especially these direct modulations that especially go like 1 or 2 steps up, because they might end up sounding a bit cheesy if not done right. You might easily sound like some kind of Eurovision Song Contest song. Now, let's look at a different way to use modulation, and this is called common chord modulation. So, for example, if you're jumping from C major to G major, you'll find that these two scales have quite a few chords in common. So, for example, in C major, you have C, G, A minor, and E minor, which are all chords in the G major key as well. So any of these could be used as a kind of a turning point to change into the new key. And this is why it's called common chord modulation. It's because you take the original key and you take the target key you want to modulate to, and then you use one of the chords they have in common, and you use this as a little turning point to change from one key to another. And the result is fairly seamless. It's not as abrupt as the direct modulation. Here I've been doing the same thing with the theme we've been listening to already, but instead of jumping directly into the new key, I've been using a common chord to modulate from one key to another. Let's have a look. So this is not extremely smoothly done, but what I've been basically doing is that I've been modulating from D minor up to A minor. So I've been doing a perfect fifth again like I did in one of the other examples, but what I've been doing here is that I've been using a little pivot point. So what are some common chords we have in D minor and A minor? One of them is A minor itself, and another one is F major. Now, that's what I'm basically been doing. So instead of going instead of that, I'm going up to F. And I'm ending on the same note again, but since I play F before and I want to land in A minor, if I play F, G, A minor now, you can hear that they kind of belong together. So I've been modulating by going to F major and then going up to G major, which is on its way to A minor, which is the destination. So I've been using a common chord to modulate from D minor to A minor. Let's have a look at the last type of modulation I'm going to go through in this video. So if you want to modulate to a key that has no chords in common, which can happen a lot of times, because I mean, it's only the closest keys that have a lot of keys in common with where you're coming from. But if you want to go to something completely different, a key that has no chords in common with where you are coming from, this is when we use what we call the altered common chord modulation. What it basically is that you choose a chord that has a common root in both your home and destination key, but alter it from, for example, from minor to major, or the other way around. So what I mean is that if you want to go from C major to F minor, these two keys have no chords in common, but so you wouldn't find any common chords, but what you could do is to go from C major to F major, since F is a subdominant of C, and then go from F major to F minor. So this is a way to use the altered common chord modulation. So here in the final example, I've been trying to modulate from D minor to F minor, and these two keys don't have any chords in common. So what I had to do is to try to find some kind of common key to try to modulate between the two. And what I tried to do here, I'm not sure if it's 100% by the book, but what I did is that I went down to C, because that's the dominant, to F major, the new key I wanted to go to. So I went from D minor to C major to C minor, and then I went to D flat. Which is the new chord in the next key. So I went from and so on. And it sounds like this. I'm not sure exactly how correct this is by the book, but it certainly works, and I hope this kind of gives you an idea of the different techniques and what I'm trying to show you here. So that kind of wraps up the different types of modulation I wanted to show you in this video, and to recap, we have the direct modulation, which is jumping from one key to another. And then you have the common key modulations, where you find some kind of common key between the key you're coming from to the key you're going to, and use that as a pivot point. And finally, you have the altered common key modulation, where you cannot find any common chords between the keys, but you use a root note where you go from major to minor or minor to major, and use that as like the entrance key to the new key that you're going to. So I hope this has been a little bit helpful in helping you understand some basic ways you can use modulation, and feel free to use these in the middle of your themes, in your melodies, in transitioning to new themes, or to contrasting themes, or to your climax, and so on. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with modulation. I hope this has been interesting and helpful, and I'll see you guys in the coming video.